Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of the Wiccan Conservative. Today I have an article from UPI News written by Daniel Uria 52 minutes ago. Steve Bannon, a former top White House advisor under President Donald Trump, will begin his trial on Monday on contempt of Congress charges for defying a subpoena to testify before the House January 6th committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol. I do not know of any criminal charges called contempt of Congress charges. I've heard of contempt of court charges, but I've never heard of contempt of Congress charges. So I went to the Cornell Law School for a definition. Contempt of Congress is when an individual intentionally interferes with congressional action. Congress has the power to restrain such individuals from interfering with its actions. It is a form of contempt, similar to contempt of court. Congress's ability to hold individuals in contempt to interfere with its duties is considered an implied power of the legislator. Really? I didn't realize. You mean to tell me that the legislative branch of government does not have nor possess the same powers as the judicial branch of government? Interesting stuff. Back to the article. It says Bannon was indicted on 2 counts of contempt for refusing to comply with the subpoena that sought testimony and documents about a meeting on January 5th, 2021. So, if Congress has implied contempt power, do they also have implied subpoena power? Because usually, if you go through the judicial branch of government, a judge has to sign off and issue a subpoena. Congress can't do that. None of them are sitting judges. They are sitting representatives. They're not judges. So how did they issue a binding subpoena that is now having legal consequences for Steve Bannon if they do not possess the power to do so? How does that happen? Let's go back to the article. Bannon surrendered to federal agents in Washington, D.C. last November and pleaded not guilty to the charges, setting up the legal case, which he threatened to turn into the misdemeanor from hell for Joe Biden's administration. And it should be. This should actually be laughed out of a courtroom, okay? What is actual criminal contempt? I went to a lawyer's website, just random lawyer. This is brianlawyer.com. What is criminal contempt of court? In court proceedings, the judge determines the type of conduct that can happen in the courtroom. If a person disobeys these rules, the judge can hold them in contempt of court. These guidelines apply to every individual present during the trial, including attorneys, witnesses, jurors, and staff. There are 2 types of contempt: direct criminal contempt, an order issued when a person disrupts or disobeys rules and the court has firsthand knowledge of the behavior. It usually occurs within the court itself. Indirect criminal contempt. This type of contempt happens outside the court. For example, speaking about the case with a juror at a restaurant would result in a contempt order being issued. Criminal charges for contempt are issued separately from the underlying case. For example, say a defendant is on trial for a drug crime. During the proceedings, she stands up and begins walking out of the courtroom. The judge asks her to sit down, but she refuses. The judge will issue a contempt order. Even if she's found innocent on the alleged crime, she will still face penalties for the criminal contempt. We all okay with that? All right. So what is the actual law code for contempt? Contempts constituting crimes, 18 U.S. Code 402. Any person, corporation, or association willfully disobeying any lawful writ, process, order, rule, decree, or command of any district court of the United States or any court of the District of Columbia. Are we noticing a pattern here? Is Congress court? No, they're not. By doing any act or thing therein, or thereby forbidden, if the act or thing so done be of such character as to constitute also a criminal offense under any statute of the United States or under the laws of any state in which the act was committed, shall be prosecuted for such contempt as provided in section 3691 of this title, and shall be punished by a fine under this title or imprisonment or both. So again, this is physically impossible for Congress to do. How do I know this? The proceedings are set to begin with jury selection on Monday, as U.S. District Judge Carl Nicholas said he was, quote, hopeful the court can find a jury that's not been closely following the January 6th committee high-profile public hearings. Here's a little hint. Not very many people are following them, but I guarantee, I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that this district judge is in the District of Columbia, which is where they are holding all of these January 6th hearings, because none of their bullshit would fly in any other district or area of the court. This is bullshit. Bannon's lawyers twice attempted to delay the trial, citing complications brought on by the publicity surrounding the January 6th attack, but Nicholas denied both requests. So if you cannot get a fair, impartial jury, then you can't have a fair, impartial trial. And you do not have the presumption of innocence walking into that courtroom. So this is a major problem. And this is exactly what the Biden administration is using the mainstream media for. All that broadcasting that goes into your households, all those messages on the airwaves through the radio and political ads, and the thousands and thousands of dollars that are spent on promoting this type of bullshit right here is to send a message to everybody that we know the rules, but we aren't going to play by them. Nicholas also ruled against a series of other motions, eliminating several defenses the Bannon's legal team had raised, and prompting his lawyer, David Schoen, to ask, quote, what's the point of going to trial here if there is no defense? The judge responded, agreed. So he would rather you just go in and say, yep, nope, I deny my innocence until proven guilty. I'm going to make this easier for you, easier for myself, and comply with the narrative and just go ahead and plead guilty. But that's not going to happen here. The committee subpoenaed Bannon, who left the White House in August 2017, last September, and said he was supposedly present at a January 5th meeting to convince lawmakers to block the certification of Biden's electoral victory. You really need to understand the Electoral College to understand faithless electors, okay? This is why nobody believes in the Electoral College anymore. This is why people want to abolish the Electoral College. I've spoken on this issue many times, and I'm here to tell you that it's back in action, okay? These people do not understand the process of the Electoral College. They don't understand the office of the presidency representing 50 sovereign states and 2 territories, not individual members of society in the United States of America. And electors are chosen by the state legislators to cast their votes to represent the entire state, not the national popular vote, not what everybody wants to do at the time, not mob rule, the actual reflections of the people in the state. That is what the electors do. And yes, an elector can vote faithless. An elector can go against the popular vote in their state. Now, there can be ramifications for those things, and it varies from state to state. But the simple fact that we want to make this even across the board, we want everybody to do the same thing, that we don't understand state sovereignty or even the need for state sovereignty to elect a president who represents 50 sovereign states and 2 territories, not the individual members of the United States itself. We need to get people to understand the process. It's a lot easier when you understand the process to see things like this for what they are: complete bullshit. Bannon's lawyers have argued that Trump invoked executive privilege to shield their conversations from the House's panel's inquiries. Why did they throw this into that article? Why would they highlight executive privilege? I'll tell you why. Because they're attempting to eliminate any type of executive privilege that exists. If you are an officer, you're not supposed to have qualified immunity. If you are a president, a aide to the president, any type of representative on the wrong side, you will not be allowed to have any of these privileges. But do not for 1 second think that you're going to get transparency in your classrooms. Do not think for 1 second that you are going to get transparency in your court systems. Do not think for 1 second that the Democratic Party will be transparent with you. No. That's all executive privilege. Perfectly fine and dandy. But anybody who has any communications with Trump, anybody that has any type of law enforcement abilities, these people are supposed to be stripped of their qualified immunities, their executive privileges, because they think that they are above the law and they're not. This is put into this article very, very strategically. Don't get it twisted. This is what this is all about. Both Meadows and Scavino discussed the terms and limits of potential testimony and executive privilege claims with the committee, and Meadows turned over thousands of text messages and communications with members of Congress and other White House aides. Again, he didn't have to do that. He did that on his own accord, probably because there's nothing to hide. But as we've seen with this entire dog and pony show, they don't care what the text messages actually say. They're going to twist them and use them to their advantage. And if you don't get the picture, then they're going to go and actually illustrate it for you. Cue the picture of the Washington Post illustrations. Earlier this month, Bannon agreed to testify before the January 6th committee after Trump said he would waive his claim of executive privilege, stating that Bannon had been treated unfairly and forced to spend vast amounts of legal fees. There shouldn't be any type of legal fees because Congress is not a judicial body. They do not have the power to subpoena. They do not have the power to enforce the law. They do not have the power of a judge. The committee said that it would not negotiate terms for Bannon to appear for testimony until he produced the subpoenaed documents. So they didn't even want him to come and testify. Do you see this? They only want to take the text messages and paint them in the way they want to paint them. Cue the Hutchinson photos again. If convicted, Bannon faces at least 1 year in jail and a fine of $100,000. Thompson said that Thursday's hearing will be one of the last at this point, and although the committee said that there could be more hearings in August or September in regards to the January 6th hearings playing out in this is months, guys. We are talking about one day with one casualty from the other side, okay? They shot an unarmed protester in the Capitol building. It's a damn shame that we don't understand what is happening on whole. I know that everybody here has a really good idea, but on whole, there are people who are buying into this. There's a reason why people are still getting paid to write these stupid articles. These people, like the man on your screen here, have been so misled and have been so confused and have been under the boot of purposeful disinformation for so long, they don't even know which way is up anymore. And we are along for the ride. We're simply along for the ride. We're allowing our tax dollars to pay into this. We're allowing people to make money off of this. Our representatives are getting paid to trot this through their faux court system. And then we sit here and seriously wonder why American citizens don't understand the general text of the Constitution. Because we do things like this. Because we have manipulated, trashed, removed, ripped up, scratched out articles that people don't want to live by because it's detrimental to their power trip. It's detrimental to what they want to accomplish. Of course, all in the name of safety and for the American people. But I digress. That's all I have for you guys today. I will catch you on the next one.